Welcome to episode 1 of Celluloid Gems. When you think of the buddy cop genre, what do you think of? Now for me that would have to be Lethal Weapon. Two different personalities having to work together to solve a big case. Guaranteed action, some funny quips here and there, and amazing chemistry when there shouldn't be. Written by Shane Black. Shane went on to write another full screenplay, another buddy cop film, but it wasn't Lethal Weapon 2, it was different. This was The Last Boy Scout, but it needed a director. Tony Scott. Now what do you think of when you think of Tony Scott? Top Gun? Beverly Hills Cop 2? Days of Thunder? Obviously one of them being an 80s classic. It also needed a producer. Joel Silver. Joel produced Lethal Weapon and the sequel, Predator and the sequel, even Die Hard and the sequel. Released in December of 1991, at the height of all of their careers, three extraordinary people from some of the most popular films coming together to create this. But as time goes by, I just don't hear enough from this film, which is a shame because I think this film's quite underrated. This is the recap of The Last Boy Scout. But before we get into the film, we need to go back in time. What was happening to contemporary action during that time?
The 80s. What a time it was to be a man. You have Rambo, McClane, Jones, even Rocky and Dirty Harry still stuck around, and there was many more. Masculinity was at an all-time high. But that all changed in the 90s. They all settled down, they were loving, they had families. One film in particular is used as the turning point here, and that's Kindergarten Cop. At the start of the movie, we have John Kimball of the 80s.
My name is John Kimball, and I love my car.
The man did have a family once, but his wife left him. Police work is the only life he has left, using violence to block the pain from his loss. When he's assigned to an undercover role as a kindergarten teacher, he's useless at first. He's been so distant from a family life for so long. However, as he soon has to protect a mother and a son from their criminal father, he realises that he doesn't want to miss another opportunity to be a father again. By the end of the film, he gives up his 80s life and becomes a full-time teacher and a parent. Even Terminator 2 can be identified here. Arnie goes from a machine hell-bent on killing Sarah Connor to a machine hell-bent on protecting Sarah's son, and during the course of the film, he begins to learn human nature. As we reach the end, when he has to sacrifice himself, John begs him not to go. The Terminator was probably the closest thing to a father figure he ever had. Those foster parents didn't do squat.
So, you get the idea, right? Things were changing. Now, onto the film.
We start with a positive song. Friday night is the night for football. Keep in mind what you're seeing here is not an aspect ratio problem. This roughly resembles the shape of a box TV from back then. This intro represents what the audience sees. Positivity, energetic music to get people excited. This is what the audience sees. When the song ends, we go directly into the action. Wait, what? It's dark. It's wet. I can hear the pounding. They're literally having a fight on the field. I can see the injuries as well. But at least they're still putting on a show. Our main man for this scene in particular is Billy Cole, running back for the LA Stallions. He gets a call from a guy called Milo, who warns him that if he does not win this game, he will die.
I'm Vern Lundquist along with Dick Butkus, and yes friends, it really is that wet.
Well, Vern, even though the Stallions trail 17-10...
Get out of here, you two. This is my video. Go on, get out. Anyway, one important character is introduced here. If you look down there, you see Sheldon Marcone. He owns LA Stallions. He's about to get interviewed right about now.
During this interview, there's some mention of a drop in attendance and TV ratings in American football.
That establishes a problem inside our story world that will come back later in the story. But for now, let's check back on Billy Cole, see what he's up to.
Something illegal. PCP. Now I don't know about you, but that XL seemed very strong, like a ball gearing to charge. Someone is definitely gonna die tonight.
Billy Cole is having the game of his life out there tonight.
Oh, of course, look at him. He just took PCP. That distorted sound of ambience you're hearing, turns out that's an actual side effect of PCP. But here, it's also like he's now so focused on what he's about to do that he's blocked any disturbances from his hearing. Or he's just gone. I know, it's all out for interpretation.
Also, one more detail I like here is that little bit of face paint underneath his eyes.
It sort of resembles bags under the eyes, as if he's dreaded this moment that he hasn't slept for days.
Moving on, time is running out for the Stallions and they're on their final possession. They're trailing 17-10, so they need 7 points to at least not lose. So a touchdown is essential.
The team is now relying on Billy. And Billy gets the ball. He charges through one defender, and another, and another. Will he make it past a fourth defender? Wait, what? Oh, now that's offense. Billy makes it to the end zone, and another 7 points to the Stallions.
Hey, life up, bitch.
Friday night is a great night for football, folks. Anyway, let's just recap what we just saw. First, we see football from an audience's perspective. Positive vibes throughout. And then we get to see what it's actually like down there, and it's nothing like what we'd expect. It does establish the problem within our story world, and in my filmmaking ideology, an introductory sequence is great for setting up and describing the world we're in. But it just gets worse. We see drug abuse, gun violence, and at the end, suicide. It just takes the positive vibes out of American football and just tears it down to nothing. It's so shocking, but really effective. I love it.
The next morning, we're introduced to one of our main characters, Joe Hallenback, former Secret Service agent, now private investigator. It's obvious he's fallen from grace from the time we lay eyes on him sleeping in his car, oblivious to the fact that kids just threw a dead animal on him. Joe heads to his office where he gets a call from his business partner, Mike Matthews.
Joe! Christ, I thought you were still in Las Vegas. I was gonna leave a message on your machine. Geez, you sound terrific. What'd you do last night?
I think I fucked a squirrel to death and I don't even remember it.
Mike had an assignment to act as a bodyguard for a stripper because someone was hassling her. Mike, however, is apparently too busy, so he offers it to Joe with a pay of $500. Joe takes it. Mike will meet him later on. That building outside where he slept? Yeah, that was his office. The broken fencing and multiple trash cans are a really nice touch here, considering the character we're dealing with.
Nobody likes you. Everybody hates you. You're gonna lose. Smile, you fuck.
Joe heads home afterwards. We are next introduced to our second main character, Jimmy Dix, fresh out of sleeping with a woman. He's at a league party with the LA Stallions. One of the players is pushing a woman's head underwater and won't let go until she sucks him off. Jimmy repeatedly asks him to let go or she'll drown, but he won't budge. Only until Jimmy throws a football right at his nose does he let go. But the thing is, Jimmy isn't even meant to be there, because he got kicked off the team.
Best storm in the National League, remember that, you fat son of a bitch?
So we now know that both men have fallen from grace. Presumably, they were in their prime in the 80s when men thrived, but now they're nothing. Joe makes it home and meets his wife while his daughter is at a friend's house. So here, from information we gather, we know that Joe is already a family man of the 90s, but his careless behaviour has caused such a strain on their relationship that there's not really anything left. Even their daughter is not particularly the happiest, showing through her Christmas picture. Suddenly, at this point, Joe notices something is wrong. There's steam from the shower, and the toilet seat is up. After checking under the bed, he knows full well what's going on.
Who's the guy in the closet?
Excuse me?
Oh, that's right. Sometimes you forget I'm a detective. See, there's all this steam in the shower like somebody was just in there. Only your hair's dry, so it must be somebody else we're talking about. Male somebody, because the toilet seat's up. Since he's not under the bed, I figured you must have stuck him in the closet when you heard my key hit the lock a day early.
Joe gives Sarah an ultimatum. When he counts to 3, Joe will put a bullet through the closet. But he'll stop if Sarah tells him the truth. Sarah tries to talk a way out of it, but fails. As Joe is about to shoot, the guy from the closet is revealed to be none other than his buddy Mike.
Look, Joe, Keeping it warm for me, Mike?
Easy. Don't do nothing dumb.
And then something real interesting happens.
Joe, put the gun down, please.
Yeah, Sarah, I think you're right. I think I am losing it.
Above all the things Joe could shoot, he shoots a photo from his wedding. Kind of symbolic. Pretty much just symbolizes how ruined their marriage is now.
Joe gives Mike his punishment.
Had a gut.
God.
Despite the affair, Joe still wants the job Mike offers. As Mike is about to leave, the film really kicks into motion. Somebody wired Mike's car. When firefighters and authorities arrive, Joe doesn't mention the affair in his police statement. It's at this point where he reveals that he suspected Mike was screwing his wife anyway, and then some interesting dialogue happens that's important later on in the film.
God damn it, why didn't you say something?
What do you want me to say, Sarah? Fuck you, Sarah?
Yes. Yeah, how about you're a lying bitch, Sarah? How about if there weren't cops here, I'd spit in your face? It would show you had some pride left.
Fresh out, honey.
We now move later into the evening. Joe meets Corey at the strip club, who is actually played by a young Halle Berry in one of her earliest roles. Jimmy is also there, and it's revealed that Jimmy is actually dating Corey. So that woman we saw in the beginning, that wasn't his partner, he was cheating on Corey.
You gotta be crazy, partner, cheating on her.
I gotta be something, Harp. Because nowadays all I do is lose friends, drink, and nail anything with a heartbeat.
Jimmy sees Corey talking to Joe and starts getting nosy about what's going on. When Corey doesn't give any answers, he goes directly to Joe. Joe refuses to give any information either. Tensions heat up, and it's at this point that we find out that Joe actually knows Jimmy.
You don't think an old guy like me could hurt you, do you, Jimmy?
Oh, so you know who I am?
James Alexander Dix, quarterback for the LA Stallions, 89-90, banned from the league on gambling charges.
So now we know exactly what happened to Jimmy. As Joe pisses him off about his drug abuse, things get out of hand. Shortly after, Joe waits outside for Corey. Joe is apparently so poor he can't even afford the cigarettes. Poor guy. He looks up at a billboard for Senator Calvin Boehner. A flashback ensues. Not much is known. All we hear is a woman in pain. Joe then proceeds to throw a glass at the billboard, so we now know that he has a beef with Boehner somehow. As Joe picks up a dropped cigarette he had, he gets knocked out, presumably by people who were after Corey. Meanwhile, Jimmy and Corey converse elsewhere. Corey is going to give Jimmy an early birthday present, but she gives him a very intriguing clue.
How would you like to get your old job back?
Joe is about to get executed, but he manages to cause a distraction to escape by talking about how fat the hitman's wife is.
She's so fat I had to roll her in flour and look for the wet spot.
Corey and Jimmy exit to find Joe missing. Despite Corey insisting they should wait for Joe, Jimmy assures her that he will protect her from whatever is threatening her. They both take their own car and drive to Corey's place. During the journey, a car gets behind Corey and rear-ends her. Jimmy is following behind, but he's stopped by a red light. Corey gets out to confront the other driver, and then it happens.
Can't you fucking drive?
Jimmy drives towards Corey, but there's nothing he can really do to fight back. So now it's up to Joe to kill the bad guys. He manages to kill most of them, but one escapes. The police then, coincidentally, arrive too late.
And Corey is dead, obviously. Hey, a purse!
Joe and Jimmy spend the rest of the night at the station, giving their report, from Corey's death to Mike's meeting. Lieutenant Beslow, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, and Detective McCassie overlook the report. Beslow believes Joe is hiding something. McCassie doesn't know Joe like Beslow and just assumes he's a nobody. But Beslow reveals something amazing about Joe.
A long time ago, the same son of a bitch saved the president's life.
Joe was a national hero back in the day. And when I mean back in the day, I presume the 80s, where he was at the top of his game. Joe and Jimmy deduce that Mike was investigating for Corey, but stumbles onto something too big for Mike to handle. So he dumps it in Joe's lap and doesn't tell the real danger behind the case. Because Mike was screwing Sarah, If Joe dies, he gets her, but as we saw, Mike bailed out too late. As Joe and Jimmy are free to go, Beslow tells Joe that Baynard gets harassing phone calls and hopes it's not Joe, but you can tell in his tone that Joe obviously did it. More information is told about Joe's past. It seems that Baynard got Joe fired from the Secret Service. When asked why by Jimmy, another flashback ensues. As Joe investigates the crying woman, it's revealed that Baynard is a real sadistic piece of shit, because he's shown repeatedly smacking a woman while she's tied up. Joe puts an end to it by punching Baynard, knocking 4 of his teeth out. Unfortunately, as we saw earlier, Baynard didn't get any real flack or damage to his career, but Joe on the other hand, corruption at its finest. Joe decides to head over to Corey's apartment and check if there's anything useful. Jimmy manages to convince Joe to let him on in his investigation. When they get there, the apartment is completely turned over. Someone has already been there. From here, it's revealed that Corey used to date Sheldon Marcone, but they broke up because he treated her like garbage. Jimmy heads to the bathroom while Joe isn't looking. He takes some drugs stashed there, but also finds something real interesting. Presumably what the earlier people were looking for. Joe and Jimmy look at it. There's a tape, pictures of Marcone and Baynard meeting up, and a document revealing several calls made to Baynard.
You know the senator's home number? Yeah, so I called him a couple times. Shut the fuck up.
They presume that this is blackmail evidence. Later that night, they have a listen to the tape. Getting a bit impatient, Jimmy fast forwards the tape.
No, don't, it needs the tape! Fast forward, it's the fucking tape! I'm supposed to know that? It's the tape! Fucking car sucks! Just shut the fuck up!
The tape is now useless. Jimmy then realizes that Corey was blackmailing Marcone because she was trying to get Jimmy back on the team. Guilt-ridden, believing she's dead because of Jimmy, he leaves. Jimmy decides to take Corey's car, which is right around the corner, but Joe thought Corey's car was the one outside the strip club. It's here that Joe realizes.
Corey had 2 cars.
Knowing what happened to Mike, he rushes to Jimmy to stop him from starting the engine. Turns out the car was wired with C4. The explosives are taken out. They walk back to Joe's car and put the C4 in the trunk, but 2 more hitmen arrive. Joe puts it specifically there in the trunk. They demand the evidence, which is in the car. They convince him that the evidence is in the trunk. Joe throws the keys away, forcing the hitmen to shoot their way in, but the C4 is right on the lock. All of their evidence is now destroyed. Once again, authorities arrive too late. Joe lets Jimmy go so he'll take the heat. Back at Beslow's office, Joe gets scolded for getting in the way of their police investigation and is given a stern warning to stay away. Just as he leaves, McCassie shakes Joe's hand because he at least respects what he did for the president. Jimmy is waiting outside the station. He still refuses to give up on getting justice for Corey. They head to Joe's house. Some small talk happens on the way.
You got kids?
Little girl.
Does she like you?
No, not too much. She likes Prince.
I like Prince.
It's nice to see that they're starting to get along a bit.
At home, we're introduced to Joe's daughter, Darion, who's watching Lethal Weapon, another Shane Black classic.
She's angry at Joe because she wouldn't let her go out on a date.
It's another example of how the family's in shambles. Joe can't even get his daughter under control.
God, you're such a fuck up.
Darion, you are my daughter, and you are in my house, and you will respect me. You got that? You don't ever call me a fuck up.
Why shouldn't I? Mom calls you in all the time.
Darion, go to bed.
Joe and Jimmy both have a drink. They converse about their problems.
I wish the sky wasn't blue. I wish water wasn't wet. And I wish I didn't still love my wife.
So deep down, Joe still loves his wife. It's probably the only thing that's holding the family together.
To Alex, the accountant.
Just a heads up, Jimmy has toasted to Alex before, twice.
Alex the astronaut.
Alex the pediatrician.
Alex, the pediatrician.
But it's here where he reveals who Alex is. Turns out, Alex was his son. Was his son. While Jimmy was still playing football, his wife at the time was 8 months pregnant. She got hit by a truck. She died, but Alex lived for 17 minutes on an incubator. So we now know that Jimmy could have been a 90s family man, but obviously he was very unlucky. There's some really touching dialogue here.
I think about him all the time, man. You know, I threw for 300 yards that day. While my wife and kid were dying.
had the game of my life. Life sucks.
Unlucky like the number 13 on the back of his head. Jimmy goes and borrows Joe's shower, but before he gets in, he decides to take the drugs he found in Corey's apartment. Joe walks in and catches him in the act. God damn it, Jimmy. Your friendship with Joe was going so well. Above all the places to do drugs, a detective's house? Joe tells him to get out after that. While getting dressed, Jimmy talks about his drug use. He started with painkillers because he couldn't handle the pain. He goes on to talk about the life events that led him to his downfall. The death of his wife and getting kicked out of the league. Stuff we knew already. But then he says something new. There's an injury report in pro football. No other sport has one. Jimmy says it's so the illegal gamblers know the spread, and football has become business now, pushing players like Billy Cole to their deaths. Joe, unfazed, still tells him to leave. As Jimmy leaves, Darion is outside, wanting an autograph. She apologizes for being a bitch and tells Jimmy that Joe was actually a big fan of his until he got kicked out.
Does he punch all his heroes?
Darion looks at his signature, signed to the daughter of the last Boy Scout.
Oh, that's why they call it that.
The next day, 3 goons go up to Jimmy and throw him off a bridge. Meanwhile, at Beslow's office, McCassie drops by. He took a statement from Joe's neighbour, who claims that Mike's car was parked outside Joe's house all night, contradictory to Joe's statement of Mike meeting at his house in the morning. Joe's lie is now discovered, but the worst case scenario happens.
Matthews is fucking his wife. That's why the car was there. Matthews was fucking Hallenback's wife. Christ, Joe wasted the bastard himself.
The detectives now believe that Joe killed Mike because they see the affair as an easy motive. Joe gets a knock on his door, but it's not from McCassie. More goons. The one on the left is actually Milo, the guy Billy Cole was talking to at the start of the film. McCassie arrives too late, but inspects the car just in case.
Good morning, gentlemen. Is there a problem?
Yes, officer. As a matter of fact, there is a problem. Apparently, there are too many bullets in this gun. Naughty boy, Joseph. You just shot a policeman.
So now Joe is wanted for 2 murders. Things just aren't going his way. Another flashback ensues. It's the day when Joe saved the president's life. There's also another shot of a younger Darion, showing Joe a picture of him against an American flag. A cool juxtaposition from Satan Claus.
Thing is away.
Make sure.
Joe wakes up by an indoor pool.
I'm awake.
A couple of goons mess around with him a bit.
You got a cigarette? Cigarette? Yeah, sure. You got a light? Seem to have dropped my cigarette. I have another. Sure thing, buddy. I'm gonna need a light. If you touch me again, I'll kill you.
Until Joe's finally had enough.
We got a 2 for 2. Told you.
Satisfying. Milo enters. Doesn't really give much of a shit about the dead body. Sheldon Marcone arrives too. We're actually at his house.
Milo, teach him some manners, will you?
You touch me again, I'll kill you.
Sheldon reveals that football is a dying sport. Ratings have plummeted. This is exactly what we heard at the start of the film. As a last-ditch effort to improve the ratings, Sheldon is trying to legalize sports gambling. The Senate's commission will vote next March on the issue. He's managed to bribe all of the senators in favor of gambling. Except for Baynard. Baynard rejected the bribe because it wasn't enough. He demanded $6 million or he'll go straight to the police. But Marcone thinks it will just be cheaper to kill him. They plan to frame Joe for the senator's murder. Marcone knows that the police will believe it was Joe, because even they know the beef that Joe and Baynard have. Meanwhile, back at the station, detectives question Jimmy and Sarah regarding Joe's whereabouts, but they can't help. Jimmy tries to find Joe himself. He rolls up to Baynard's home, where he's just finishing up an interview. It's at this point where the film takes a really comedic turn. Darion follows Jimmy and refuses to leave, Plus, she has Joe's gun as well. Also, Boehner's bodyguards are driving off. Jimmy follows them. They head up into the woods. Jimmy stops the car, where my favourite piece of dialogue kicks in.
You stay here, I'm gonna go look around. Stay.
I love Jimmy's little laugh as he exits frame. It's as if this was genuine, Darion's woof was improvised. Milo and his men meet the bodyguards. Joe is there too. After counting the money to check it's real, Milo makes a distraction. He manages to draw the attention away from the money, which is then swapped with an explosive briefcase. Joe is then asked to give the bodyguard the briefcase, where he's then photographed for evidence purposes. It's here we see Milo's sadistic tone kick in.
Go fuck yourself.
Okay, now that's not polite. It's very abusive sounding. What would you do, Joseph, if somebody told you to go fuck yourself? Would you cut one of their eyes out?
No.
What would you do? You think you're so fucking cool, don't you? You think you're so fucking cool. Well, just once, I would like to hear you scream in pain.
Play some rap music.
It's this scene in particular that makes Milo a standout character. He's not just your average goon. He's a guy worse than all to do Marcone's dirty work. He was supposed to be way worse. I say was, but we'll get to that towards the end of the video. Jimmy manages to get an eye on the meeting, but he's then spotted. The two are on their way to get executed. However, Darion arrives with Furry Tom, but with a plan. Little do the hitmen know that Darion has stashed Joe's gun inside Furry Tom. I say this before anything happens because I thought most would have seen the signs. To me, this is the turning point in Joe's character. A turning point to a better man. Even when he's about to get executed, he doesn't really show any real visible emotion in his face. But when Darion gets involved, you can hear a little bit of fear in his voice, as if he's actually finally giving a shit for once.
Get this kid out of here.
My name is Furry Tom.
I said get out of here, kid.
No, kid stays.
I'll go in depth in why Darion is the turning point at the end, mainly all 90s theory. She hands Joe the puppet, and now it's all up to Furry Tom.
Why did Mr. Milo cross the road?
I don't know why.
Because his dick was stuck in a chicken. Furry Tom thinks this is probably the first pussy a lot of you guys have seen in a long time. Especially this fat fuck over here. Where'd you get this suit, Grandpa? Gangsters arrest?
Oh yeah! Funny and fantastic. They get back in Jimmy's car and drive off. Milo and his men are in chase. Joe isn't able to shake them. He manages to lose one car, but Milo is still following close behind. They both go crashing down a mountain. What makes this scene really funny to me is that realistically, the car is not bouncing up and down like the camera illusion is making it out to be, but rather, the car is static and there's just a cameraman just going up and down with the camera, while the cast is just sitting there going, oh god, oh no! Joe crashes into a back garden, while Milo's car crashes into some guy's pool. Joe, Jimmy and Darion arrive and retrieve the $6 million suitcase. The next objective is to go after the other suitcase. At this point, Jimmy sums up the rest of the film quite well.
I figure you must be the dumbest guy in the world, Joe. Why is that? Because you're trying to save the life of the guy that ruined your career and avenge the death of the guy that fucked your wife.
Life sucks, just as they said. They leave Darion with a homeowner, where he calls the police informing them about Joe going to the Coliseum. But the way he goes about it just makes it worse.
Stole my car, he set my pool on fire, the man is a lunatic.
Oh yeah, and Milo survived and he kidnaps Darion. Joe and Jimmy are in hot pursuit of the bodyguard's limo. Some more funny dialogue happens here, but I'll sum it up.
I'm drawing them a picture.
What is that? It's a bomb. It doesn't look like a bomb. It looks like an apple with lines coming out of it. They're going to say, don't open a briefcase. It's full of fresh fruit.
Happy?
Are you kidding me?
Who's criticizing my shit? I can't do nothing right.
Oh, shit! Forgot to tell you. Bomb means fuck you in Polish.
For those who are wondering, no, it does not mean fuck you in Polish.
I swear to Christ, Junior, if I survive this fucking case, I'm gonna dance a jig.
What?
I'm gonna dance a jig, I swear to Christ.
So anyway, Joe manages to stop the limo. He kills the bodyguard and takes the suitcase. At this point, Milo calls Joe from the bodyguard's phone and tells him to back off or something will happen to Darion. Joe and Jimmy decide to head straight to Marcone. They take some weapons from the limo. The most important thing they take, however, are shredders for the shotgun, used to blow doors open. With that done, they head to the stadium.
Son, we're going to a ball game.
So here we are, back where it all started, at a football game. Not the same stadium, but you get the idea. Senator Baynard is also here to watch the game as well. Not entirely sure how they managed to replace Billy Cole in such a short time. That team must still be a bit traumatized. I'm also a bit surprised that no games were postponed to investigate what happened. But then again, with the amount of corruption in this film, I think anything can happen. Or maybe I just don't know anything about American football at all. I'm British!
Joe and Jimmy manage to slip past the cops. To get to Marcone, they walk down a corridor where players run onto the field, but one moment here interests me.
Jimmy, did you bastard? You broke my nose! What the fuck you doing here? You were banned! You were kicked off the fucking team!
How'd you like to get kicked off the fucking planet?
Just want to point out that throughout this entire day, Jimmy goes from this...
I told you no guns, right? I hate guns.
...to this.
How'd you like to get kicked off the fucking planet?
Now I don't know the exact point in the film where he changes his mind on guns, but whatever it was, God bless America.
They eventually get to Marcone in some sort of private suite. Darion is there, and so are a bunch of guards. Not particularly surprised. Marcone reveals that Milo will now attempt to assassinate Baynard simply by sniper fire.
Where's old Milo shooting from?
Well, let's just say that Milo's in a highly enlightened position.
God damn it, Marcone. Considering the sun just went down on a now really dark stadium, an enlightened position is a pretty massive clue. But isn't this common practice? You know, let's just say and give away easily decodable info?
An A+. How did you do it?
Oh, let's just say I had help from a little magic box.
You changed your grade with a computer?
No!
Anyway, Marcone goes on about how Jimmy fell from grace and his addiction to Demerol. But it's at this point where Marcone does something really evil.
Hey, what the
You know, it's cool and all to be corrupt and stuff, but to shoot a guy in the hand without being stopped, pretty sure this was used to just piss off the audience. They want him now to die a really gruesome death. As Marcone orders his men to shoot them both, Joe tries to talk his way out. First he tells Marcone the $6 million is in a white BMW parked next to his car, but he doesn't buy it, believing the money was destroyed. Joe then tries to use the tape, the one that was wrecked by his own car, but instead of saying it's going to the police, he instead says it goes to the mob, because after all, if sports gambling is made legal, the mob actually loses the most from it. $2.5 billion apparently, their entire gambling income, but Marcone doesn't believe that either. Jimmy now tries to bluff his way out. He claims the money is in a locker and he has the key, but instead of getting out a key, he gets out a shredder. And of course, this scene has to go down in so much style.
Whoops. That's one of those new plastic keys.
Get the goddamn key!
The kind that shred.
Oh yeah! Now that's entertainment.
Anyways, a fight ensues. Even Jimmy gets involved. Joe, Jimmy and Darion make it out alive, but Marcone escapes. Shortly before leaving, Marcone spots the $6 million suitcase in the BMW Joe mentioned, and steals it. Kind of odd that Marcone has just fired a gun, but no one really panics.
Maybe because it's America and they're used to it?
The only thing left to do now is to save Baynard. From Marcone's blatantly obvious clue, Joe believes Milo will be up in the lights. Literally, the clue was right in his face. Could have amped up the difficulty there. Joe goes after Milo, while Jimmy tries to get Baynard's attention. Jimmy has to think fast here. Jimmy quickly nabs a horse and gallops onto the field. He gets the ball and heads towards Baynard's box. At this point, Milo is about to fire. Jimmy, trying to get Baynard's attention, throws the ball directly at his face.
Keep in mind, he's throwing it with his right hand, the one that was just shot. So he throws the ball, but what happens? Now that is $1 million arm.
And the crowd goes wild.
For a bit. Milo starts blasting afterwards.
Joe also arrives at this point. Milo tries to reload his gun, but Joe tosses everything overboard, and a fight ensues.
I told you! You ever touch me again, I'll kill you!
The police fire on Milo, who drops off the lights and into a well-deserved helicopter rotor. Satisfying. It's all over now. Joe finally dances a jig, just as he said he would.
Hey, what the hell is he doing?
I don't know. Is he dancing?
It's like he's dancing.
You know, for a dancer, he's one hell of a detective.
Good times.
After everything settles down, Baynard confronts Joe, and instead of thanking him for saving his life, he points him out to the cops because of all the phone calls Joe was giving him. Very ungrateful. And just like Mike Matthews before him...
Had a gun.
Excuse me?
Sarah arrives. She finally apologizes to Joe for the affair and asks for forgiveness. At first, it seems unlikely, but he actually says the best thing possible here.
Fuck you, Sarah.
You do remember what happened at the start of the film, right?
What do you want me to say, Sarah? Fuck you, Sarah?
Yes. Yeah. How about you're a lying bitch, Sarah? How about if there weren't cops here, I'd spit in your face?
Fuck you, Sarah. You're a lying bitch, and if the cops weren't here, I'd spit in your face.
Bessler arrives, asking for the location of the suitcase. When they discover that it was taken, they check the back and find the other suitcase. However, when opened, it's revealed that this suitcase has the $6 million, meaning Marcone ran off with the wrong suitcase. The next day, Joe's family are reconciling. Joe can now finally get his daughter under control.
Oh, come on, Daddy's fucking famous.
Hey, you wanna watch your mouth?
Yes, sir.
And finally, Jimmy now becomes Joe's new partner, ending this film on a nice note. Even this scene acknowledges a transition to the 90s, perhaps hyperconsciously.
Now, this being the 90s, you can't just walk up to a guy and smack him in the face. You gotta say something cool first, you know what I mean? Like, if you hit him with a surfboard, you would say, "Surf's up, pal." Yeah, something like that.
So what else?
Be prepared, son. That's my motto. Be prepared.
So here we are, at the end of the film. Let's just summarise what happened to our main characters. Joe fell from grace a few years ago. He was once a Secret Service agent, but Baynard got him fired. His life spiraled out of control from there, not giving a damn about much in life, not even an affair. His 90s family life in ruins. I think Darion's involvement gave him quite a scare, and you can definitely tell. His daughter, a key component of a family, kidnapped and in danger. It gives Joe a kick in the ass. Even though his family life is in ruins, he would never want to lose it. His own flesh and blood. Plus, he even says he still loves his wife. He may not get another chance like that again. The scenario made him wake up a bit to what he has to lose. By the end of the film, he has his pride back, his family back, and he finally gives a damn about life. He may never get any poetic justice for Baynard firing him. He's still a dick at the end of the film, probably still up to the same antics he was up to years ago. But Joe has his family, and for a 90s man, that's all that matters. Next we have Jimmy, banned from the league on gambling charges. He was almost a family man, but luck killed his chances. He also lost Corey, so his relationship couldn't develop any further there. And he's also addicted to painkillers. I think one scene where we definitely see a different Jimmy from the start of the film is the final ball throw. Even using his bad hand, he still manages to get a perfect hit on Baynard's face. It's like perhaps he's conquering the pain he tried to hide away with painkillers. Plus, he's now Joe's partner. He may not be a 90s family man. He may not even have a woman in his life, but he's at least something. He's not drinking, losing friends, and nailing anything with a heartbeat. He has a new purpose in life. Now from the outside, there's not much you can see, but behind the scenes of production, oh boy, apparently it was a mess. In real life, Willis and Wayans apparently hated working with each other. Joel Silver was apparently hands-on in production. Tony Scott apparently hated Joe so much that there was a character based off Joel in his next film, True Romance. Shane Black also had some problems too, and this is the last point I'll mention. Shane rewrote the script multiple times. The original script was sold for $1.75 million, and that was a record at the time. And that script can be found online, and there's some notable changes. I'm going to go through them right now. Most of the story is roughly the same. It gets drastically different after Joe meets Marcone at his house. Turns out that Marcone's men also kidnap Sarah, and will probably kill her if Joe doesn't cooperate. After Jimmy talks to the detectives, he heads back to his apartment where Darion is there. She knows about the kidnappings because she was left a message to not call the cops or her parents die. She went straight to Jimmy's for help. The suitcase exchange actually takes place off Santa Catalina Island, a private party full of rich people. Marcone and Baynard are there. Joe is taken aboard one of the yachts, with Milo in control. Sarah is taken elsewhere. A helicopter also monitors the situation. After the party, the exchange will be made at sea, and the suitcase will kill anyone on board Baynard's boat, but the boat won't sink because there's not enough C4. Joe's body will be placed among the corpses later. As Baynard almost opens the rigged briefcase, Jimmy arrives by boat, which scares Baynard into thinking it's a setup. Milo is in pursuit of Jimmy and is getting close while the helicopter goes after Baynard. Joe manages to escape but sets fire to the boat in the process. He plunges into the sea. Jimmy picks him up, but they head into a thick fog. The helicopter arrives and attacks Jimmy's boat with a rocket. However, the pilot accidentally swerves into Milo's yacht, crashing into it. Jimmy and Joe recover the suitcase full of money and head for Baynard's boat. Half the cockpit is blown off, presumably by a rocket. Joe recovers the rigged suitcase, but Baynard and his men are dead. That's right, Baynard dies. They make it to a dock and head back to Joe's house to get some weapons. Joe apparently has a shotgun and shredders of his own. Some more goons arrive. They kidnap Jimmy. Joe manages to take some of them out, but Jimmy is already in Marcone's hands. Joe heads to Marcone at his house, not the stadium. He saves Jimmy and forces Marcone to give him the location of where Sarah is held. Out of nowhere, however, a twist character is revealed, who is pretty much responsible for setting up the film's story in motion, but I'll get to him when we talk about Baynard in a bit. Jimmy uses his shredder plan to get Joe and Jimmy out of the situation. Marcone escapes once again, taking the wrong suitcase with him. So yeah, some bits still made it into the film. Joe and Jimmy head to a snuff film studio to save Sarah. Jimmy drives back to Joe's car to get the suitcase full of money. Joe gets Darion and the family hide in his office. Milo arrives and attempts to kill Joe, but Sarah comes out of nowhere and saves the day, emptying Joe's revolver into Milo. It's all over. Jimmy arrives and informs Joe that Marcone has taken the wrong suitcase. Marcone fled downtown and he opens the suitcase and bam, explosion on the 32nd floor. Joe, who still has the money at this point, takes a fee from the suitcase, the same fee he would have got for Corey's protection job, and gives the rest away to a cancer research centre. Joe and Jimmy become partners after that. So what do I think of this version? Some things I like, some things I don't. In the script version of Jimmy and Joe talking at home, there's a bit where Jimmy calls himself a loser and Joe cheers him up that's in the script but not in the film. Yet at the same time, there's a bit where Jimmy talks about having the game of his life while his wife and kid were dying that I like that's in the film but not in the script. You can clearly notice the additional comedy in the film version. I don't mind it, but it may not be for everyone's liking. Perhaps it detracts from the serious tone a bit. Don't particularly mind either the car chase or the yacht chase, but one thing is for certain. I much prefer the film's finale to the script one. It started with football, the story affects football greatly, and it should have ended with football. The script finale seems a bit lack. Jimmy's role doesn't seem that important. I don't particularly care about the money at this point, whereas in the film's finale, both Joe and Jimmy's roles are equally as important. I'm aware of some reasons for rewrites. Obviously when it comes to saving his wife, Bruce Willis already did that in Die Hard 2, a year earlier. Moving on to characters, Joe is pretty much the same. Some backstory is different though. The president was attacked, but not with a pistol, but with a sniper. Joe has that sniper at his home as a souvenir, and takes it with him when he confronts Marcone. The reason behind him getting fired is slightly different too, but I'll get to that when we talk about Baynard. Jimmy is somewhat the same. From the script however, his partying habits are way worse. I distinctly remember him shitting on a car. probably where this line comes from.
Hey, that's Marcone's car. Come on. I always wanted to do that. Should've shit on it.
His former lover was apparently a junkie. She wasn't killed by a truck, she died due to drug complications. He was also accused of point shaving, but according to him, he never did that. There's also an exclusive scene in the script where Jimmy flushes the rest of his drugs down the toilet. I think the film could have benefited with that because it would make Jimmy's transition to a better person clearer. Instead of getting thrown off a bridge, he gets thrown over a fence to a 50-foot drop. He survives, but his entire throwing arm is broken. Darion is pretty much the same, through and through. However, she's not particularly as helpful in the script. She just tags along for the ride during the boat chase. Her presence does still cause the same effect to Joe. After the chase, she's dropped off at a Denny's and is just told to stay there until Joe picks her up. Sarah is way worse, morally. Instead of cheating with just Mike, she apparently cheated with several other men too. She doesn't even apologise for it. She gets played with pretty rough too. Even Pablo plays with her boobs at one point. Yeah, Pablo, the guy on the piano. Turns out he had a lot more screen time in the script. At the snuff film studio, she's also tied up naked. There is that "fuck you Sarah" line in the script, but it's all in one scene rather than at the start and at the end. It doesn't have that same effect, you know, that "oh yeah, I remember" effect, the ones that check that you've actually listened. I prefer where those lines were in the film. Perhaps her killing Milo in the script was some sort of redemption for her. Marcone is pretty much the same, except his name is not Sheldon, it's Conrad. Also, the E on the end of Marcone is removed. He doesn't shoot Jimmy's hand, but he does kick him quite a bit. Milo has the biggest change from the script. Turns out that Milo is a director for snuff films. We're visually introduced to him on the production of a new film where we see a woman about to get chainsawed to pieces. Not only that, but he does kill an entire family at sea. Keep in mind, your main man for film reviewing, Roger Ebert, said this film was vilely misogynistic. But that was the film! The script is way worse! The closest we ever got to old Milo was that sadistic monologue he has when he puts a knife to Joe. Do I think old Milo could have still been integrated into the film? Subtly. We know he's evil, but rewrites didn't show his full potential. I think I kinda understand the rewriting here. Perhaps it was made to make the film more appealing to a mainstream audience. As you've noticed, the script is a lot darker. Perhaps the snuff film scenes are a bit too much for people to handle and just scrap the snuff film part entirely. Baynard is different. You see, he has a son called Lewis that's in the script. Lewis killed a wife and child in a drunk driving accident. Joe was there as a bodyguard. He got angry and punched him, his face disfigured and now in a coma. Because Joe refused to cover it up, Baynard, the father, got him fired. Lewis is the twist character at the end. One time at the club, he got too drunk and started spilling information to Corey. That's how she knew the plot. But the son is fine with killing his father because he gets the inheritance and can put Joe in prison for the murder. This twist does tie in with the amount of corruption in the film, but it doesn't particularly go anywhere after that because he dies in the shootout shortly after. The addition of Lewis as a twist character would have been great for the film, if only he was given a bit more to do. Like trying to stop Jimmy from saving the senator while Joe goes after Milo, and that's when he could have got killed somehow. Corey was a little less developed in the script. It's never mentioned that Corey was blackmailing to get Jimmy back on the team, so you'd assume she just did it for money for herself. With the film's motive, it makes Corey look more caring of Jimmy, while the script made her more selfish. Her death in the film made you feel a bit more sorry. I wouldn't have felt the same way in the script. Perhaps the script motive was to tie in with the large amounts of misogyny portraying the female cast as them being out for themselves, such as Sarah's affairs, Jimmy's ex-wife's secret junkie habits, and Corey's personal gain. I think the film does her justice as a morally better character. Yes, she still blackmails, but at least it's for a nicer reason. In the script, she blackmails for money, but there's no sign of her being in financial trouble, as if she just did this as a get-rich-quick scheme. While every other woman in the film was either put on display, treated like garbage, or just does nothing of significant importance. Obviously, I see it as a good thing for Corey that she's subverting from the female representation of this film, because I come from a time when there's a little less misogyny and a little less tolerance of it. Much less than the script, that's for sure. Even though she's slapped around a bit, the film at least makes her a nice character to like. There was supposed to be a big sex scene between Jimmy and Corey. It was filmed and there's a tiny millisecond of it in the trailer, but it didn't make it into the final cut. Billy Cole's small part is different. From taking the pills and onward, it mostly remains the same, but beforehand is completely different. The Friday night song isn't even there. It starts specifically when Billy gets a call from Milo. This isn't even in the locker room like it is in the film.
It's in a dark bedroom, with the only light source being the TV, just like this.
The game itself is not at night in the rain, but rather in a snowstorm in the day. It's definitely not the same without the song segment. There's no juxtaposition between what the audience sees and the reality, which is what made the introductory sequence great for me. To me, the film's intro was much better, and I still think it's one of the highlights of the film. Believe it or not, Furry Tom makes an appearance. This is at Joe's house. Pablo, who's still alive at this point, and a few goons arrive. Joe hides a gun inside Tom like he does in the film. The whole ventriloquist act is here too, but I do find the film's dialogue funnier. He kills the goons and stabs Pablo with a sharp Medal of Valor he has.
I think that's all I have to say really. To me, this film is an underrated gem. If you've seen this before but not recently, I would recommend a rewatch. If you haven't even seen this film at all, then I've just spoiled everything for you. With that being said, I'm out of here. To Alex, the detective.